putting it together is like a map, a brain map of how things happen, you know, and it's slowed down so it almost looks like it's in time.
That's right.
And you can see it, but it's the culmination of that one thing, you know.
Right. In fact, when we made that movie last year, I realized that it wasn't taking away the obvious of we were holding up the cameras and we were doing we were always back behind the picture somewhere.
Right.
And it's still there, but the movie made it faster so that it kind of blurred away. But if you could slow it down enough, I think we could see ourselves behind the action actually doing it still.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do. Because, and this, I mean, I don't want to get too mystical, Greg, but this is like mystical. This is where the two realms touch. You know, the Irish used to say the thin places, or this is where things touch.
Yes.
Where you go from verse to verse, or you go from, in a different language, I would say you go from paradigm to paradigm. In a different language, I might say you change the subject and the verb, or you invert the sentence. You know, there are just so many things that we might say as Babylon Theater. You're walking away, Greg, but
no, I'm listening.
It's not going to keep me from talking.
I'm going to just go right over here.
All right. And he's grabbing now. All right.
And what you say is so true that it's almost unbelievable.
And Greg, it is unbelievable, I think, to almost everyone but you. And you're the only believer. Well, you're not the only believer. But
I'm telling you,
are the best audience I've ever had.
I keep telling you, I'm a doubter all the way.
Yeah.
I doubt things, and so I keep running over things that you consider
and I think
done.
You and me together are probably the best audience anybody could ever want.
And when there was
like
Scott and Corey there, we were all the best audience
we were.
had.
And I've been talking about that, Greg, and I don't know if I've fully indoctrinated you or explained as much as I would like to how important the audience is to pretty much everything I think about Babylon Theater, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, and I was so shocked when you started saying that, because previously I thought you were saying that. Well, we agreed when we went into it that we're not doing it for an audience, for the audience, because we don't know if we have one and we don't care. That we're doing it for ourselves, and we're the audience. So, but this
I did say that, but then I said, well. Understanding everything, step one, define your terms. What do you mean by, and I said, I can't remember what we're talking about. Audience, that what I might have thought I meant then, maybe I should discover what I mean by audience. And that's when I came up with this, is that the whole fabric of the universe, the raison d'etre, what did you call them? Death raisins?
Something like that.
Choke on. Of the is that. You know. So
it's fine. It's all fine. But really, I don't remember what I was going to say right now.
That is a problem sometimes, but it doesn't stop us.
No, it never should, because if it does, then we're falling.
I'm just talking about the evolution of the Babbleverse, and beyond that, irrespective of that, the evolution of my thinking about myself.
Right, and the Babbleverse, my relationship to myself and the Babbleverse. Which is
you see.
You're basically saying, really, I think you're saying that the Babbleverse is pretty much equates to the borders of your consciousness or your self-awareness. So it's sort of just a big Nolan floating around in space. the Babbleverse.
And I don't want to assign responsibility or blame, but it's really trying to justify my existence.
Of course.
What I do is what I do.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
most people when they're looking
There's
for
a song.
some kind of salvation or something, they'll go back to their roots, to their family's religion or something, rather than trying to find refuge in a name, Babylon Theater. It's just us,
Well, the thing is, I agree with you, Greg. People make their own choices and so forth, and there are other verses, and people inhabit them and are perfectly happy and able to justify their verse as well as I am. But
Yeah.
I really think this is a great verse.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it.
It's a good
And
verse.
It's a good verse as long as, I don't crash my car or anything like that. I think we should try to avoid those sorts of.
Well, I think that's true in any verse.
But as you say, as we've said, the verse is only what we put into it. So if we go into it not knowing much about the one we just came out of, then the Babbleverse is not going to resemble that very much.
Mm-hmm.
So the Babbleverse is limited to all of our life experiences.
Well, in
There's
a way
really
it
nobody.
is.
There's no research department or an expert.
And this is why people like Nate, because I can't articulate it, have to explain that other people are more expert about how that happens, what we're talking about,
Yeah.
than we are.
Right.
And sometimes there are people from different verses, but Babylon is not a religion.
No.
Babylon is not a philosophy.
No.
What is Babylon?
It's whatever the people will believe.
Thank you. So there we go. And now where do we go?
Now we go to this commercial,
A commercial.
which somebody's got to pay for this party.
Right.
So
No, yeah. Well, you could pause or you could just go into the commercial. What is the commercial, Greg?
it's our
Not that warranty thing again.
No,
Oh,
we're not
right.
doing the warranties today because we're having a quarantine on warranties. But it's our old favorite commercial. It's one of our earliest commercials
Oh, yeah?
that we ever ran, and it was that guy who does waterbeds out there in
Tom
Sacramento.
LeBouy.
Tom LeBouy.
Tom LeBouy.
Yeah, Tom LeBouy. We've heard.
Read What About House.
He might be actually in the party here somewhere tonight.
Yeah.
So we've sent out a couple of runners, ball boys.
I almost sounded like him, but not quite.
You did.
He sounds like himself, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sounds like pretty much.
Well, so we're going to try and...
We're
him
going
in
to try
here.
to get him in here for just an audio, a quick hi to him.
Greg, did we just suddenly develop an audience? I thought we were just talking among ourselves. Now we seem to be talking to somebody else.
Well, that's because we go into that dimension. We're in the Babbleverse now.
I know, and you could just be... Well, even loners
I know.
get a close-up in the
Yeah.
Babbleverse.
And we're talking directly about us. Because we're the loners.
That's
We
right.
created all these characters
Because we're just too
such
shy.
loners. And we want them to do these things for us, like the League of Injustice students. Ralph,
do things for you.
Ralph, you go do that so we can
Well,
see what
I
happens.
don't think Grandpa even asked. It's like, Ralph, I want to do things for you. I want to do things for you. Let's save my grandpa's
I
job.
know. That's-
Oh, Ralph.
Ralph. He's I don't know how he got. I'm not sure he even belongs with those ruffians, those League of Injustice students.
I don't know. Here's the deal. Ralph kind of came across our
Radar.
before Oval did.
Oh,
Even though Oval, he goes back and then he goes back and forth. Sometimes he ends up being back and sometimes he ends up being forth.
Well, because
But Ralph is from the Wayback Machine, you know.
Right. He's only one character. There hasn't been any other characters that were in his doing what he does.
Yeah.
Whereas before Oval, there was Peter the Prophet.
Oh, there were some others. Yeah, yeah.
Who led towards that sort of doubtful kind of philosophy or whatever. And then I hate to say it, his Oval was not around right now, but he was pretty much born full grown out of our heads.
He was. We don't really have any childhood videos of Oval.
No, it was like,
yeah.
we got to do this show for this poetry reading festival
Here you go.
one night at the church, and we got to do it.
Well, you know, by the same token, I think Ralph is the only really pure radical activist in a whole Babylontheon.
Yeah, Ralph almost.
Well, his mom. I mean, that's more recent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Ralph. I always kind of felt I wasn't sure I could trust him because he's such a slippery. You know, he acts like he's this good, upstanding student, A student or whatever, like Dobie Gillis or something, but he is responsible for all this mayhem out on the other side of town.
I know. It's like activism as a business or something.
Yeah.
And you know, he always looks, or he tries to look so young.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? It's like,
sure.
I'm still.
Yeah.
It's like Ricky Nelson never died or something.
You have to, yeah, right. Because you have to have young youth is the only people that can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but he's not. Have you seen him?
No, he's not youthful anymore.
Have you seen him here? You know, he walks kind of like us, Greg.
Yeah, everybody does lately.
It's true.
But
it's true.
Ralph has always kind of scared me because I never felt like he was quite a Babylonian character.
Yeah, I understand.
He was way, way more.
And maybe this is where the whole thing comes, is I don't know, they're talking about who they are, and we have misgivings about who they are because we once thought they were us and that like everyone else is us.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, they're not, you're a flawed child.
Right.
I'm sorry, I love you, but you're a flawed child.
Yeah. Well, right.
I'm sorry, Greg. I know it's hard, but that's how I think about some of the.
Oh, sure.
You know.
And they really just. I don't know.
Okay, I have all this ice and I have nothing to do, so I'm going to put some water, even though it's not filtered, into this glass and drink it.
Okay. So I say once again that Ralph, because he isn't quite totally invested in our world, he is probably the best person we have to be a kind of a bellwether for what's going on in the Babbleverse. If Ralph is interested in it, we should probably pay attention. And he got interested in the insurrection last year, really early on.
He did. He was and we actually have audio only of many of those characters who ended up in the movie. That what they said then never showed up in the movie.
Right.
And Grandpa Albert, what was alive then, and yeah.
So, and Grandpa you could always tell he was sort of sympathetic towards us. He didn't want to cause us a lot of grief. You know, he said that in the movie there, that he came out of whatever dimension that stuff came from. I like Greg and Nolan, you know.
Right. I just want to stop everything right now to say, what if we did like I don't know what you'll latch onto, but like a Kentucky Cycle or some kind of generational play, you know, about those particular people, the rubbers and the taxpayers. Yeah. And maybe someone else their stories intertwine over generations
Well,
as a full-length audio play.
so it would be very sort of
Be scripted and produced and,
it'd be sort of newsreelish, though, right? You'd be going back in time.
No, they're vignettes of these people, put like Wilder's The Long Christmas Dinner sort of thing.
So they're all from different generations, different times.
Well, do you know The Long Christmas Dinner?
No.
Oh, well, it's a family, and people come and go from the dinner table over generations, and they talk about,
Okay.
So it's like that, but it's more like, but it's also like The Grapes of Wrath. It's a saga of some kind of movement of these people that you are told you should care about. And I think
Sure.
I'm just looking for a new project for Babylon Theater,
Right,
Greg.
sure.
And
It'd be,
we keep saying these people are great, but they're unfinished.
yeah.
And we could use them, exploit them like we do, like they claim we do,
Yeah. Sure.
to make an opus of the traditional audio theater genre.
Yeah. And
I'm
really,
just,
a tale of two.
waving, so I'm gesticulating all over the floor.
A tale of two dynasties. With I can see the Rubbers being a dynasty, and I can see, but I don't quite see where the dynasty part comes into the.
It's not a dynasty. It's more of the story. You get this guy like Mr. Smith who goes to Washington and he's a nobody, but he makes a mark. And part of that story is his backstory. And you get the Jodes in Washington.
Right. So, yes. So
that's what a great image.
Yeah, well, I can see pairing those two families because the Rubbers are the Great American Success Story type of story.
And I'm thinking, Greg, we can not only pair them in their progression, sort of, but at some point we can bring them together.
Yeah.
Maybe adversarially, or at least getting to meet one another.
They know each other.
And
sure.
I think this could be a heartwarming play. It would be a generational art talent. Again, Thornton Wilder,
Or it could be a new Dallas.
Well, it could be, but I don't want to get sucked into that, Greg. Yes,
Or Miami,
yes,
Miami
but that's
Vice.
crass. Lift your sights. Although Dallas, when it came out, was the biggest thing of its kind ever.
We could be rich.
Like they were on Dallas.
Yeah. But, no, that was too much for me. I had to say that. It was getting to seem like Pollyanna was floating all over the air, dropping little bubbles of Pollyanna.
Me?
Yeah.
Are you talking about me?
No, I'm not even in this movie. I'm over here in the Babbleverse.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to interfere in your verse there. I think that's a possibility. That sounds like the last thing we ever do, but.
Well, it sounds to me like what we did to write Pilgrim's Problems, and we could do it just as easily, and we could actually record it remotely with a script.
Right, sure.
So I like it. It's just one of those ideas, the harebrain on the side of the part that we always are talking about, which was how can we finish unfinished business.
Oh yes, legacy making.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for being so honest. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
And I'd say, go show me the first scene and see if I can get excited enough to dive in with you.
Well, the first thing I wanted to do was broach the subject, put a brooch on so that we could go greet the subjects.
I want a brooch that's it's one of those.
Yeah.
You know.
No.
I don't think you do know. One of those that we were talking about it earlier. Those carvings in the soft rock. We got them in
Closeup.
We got them. We got them in Greece.
I know.
They were.
Closeup is like that, but it's called something else. Yeah, that one thing.
Yeah.
Cameo.
Cameo. It was a cameo, yes. That's why we're having cameos appearances.
Right.
Because they're little jewels.
They pop out.
Popped out without any coloration or anything. So that's it.
And now, if your life's not full enough,
right?
You can rent a pop-up character.
Yeah. And
just put it in water.
It grows into a cameo.
Performance.
It's a cameo performance
by
whoever.
illusion of your choice.
Yeah, you pick him. We've got everybody. We've got Mick Jagger. We've got John Lennon. We've got all of those 60s people. And then for you youngsters, we've got Raymond Squarepants, Bottomless Jubba, and a few of the others. So.
Yeah, and a slew of the others. We're sitting in here on blue flax, and a slew of the others are me not.
Are we in? Are we not? Oh gosh, there's this commercial on KSL that always comes on. They want to hire people to learn to be their board operator or do traffic reports on KSL, and it says the Next Star Media Group, I think is the name of the company that's does this for them. Whenever the commercial comes on, they say Next Star Media Company, and I always hear Next Armenians or something. So it just cracks me up every time. It's not that much of a thing to really report here, but
no, but we were talking about this a while back. I think you need a context. You need to set it up as a joke or a meme or something, or a drinking game. But there's just something very interesting about when you don't quite hear what somebody says. For me, something pops into my mind, and it may not be me trying to figure out what they said as me trying to understand what they, and so to repeat what I heard, which is just what was happening to you a minute ago.
Right. But that game of telephone that everybody knows, where they say it gets changed over the course of the people talking about it, that's a little lower level than what you're talking about.
Oh, way lower. And somebody says, JFK was shot today, and I was really cried about it. And I go, you put hay in that? I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Right. Yes, that's why when the spaceship takes off and leaves little Molly standing in the forest clearing there, looking up at the bottom of it, and all these lights are going, and she says, "What does it mean?" And the lights change, and it says, "Bring peace and love into your lives," or something. But she's on this high from eating this chocolate earlier, and it's got all her hormones flowing, and she's hallucinating, and she thinks it says, "Take violin lessons every Thursday at 5.
Oh, and I love that. And I'm thinking, I never thought this before, but I'm thinking this right now, Greg, that somebody like little Molly could be that third eye of the saga, who's seeing it, maybe is part of it. She's the discoverer. I told you about reading Pynchon's Against the Day.
I don't know.
Oh.
When did you tell me that?
Well, I don't know, but when you gave me Little Molly, I immediately thought of Pynchon's Against the Day, which is a huge book,
I'm sure it is, yeah, right.
but and it ultimately seems to be talking, I think, finally about the beginnings of World War One.
Oh,
But it's Pynchon, and it starts out with this boys club who are like, Boy Scouts, only they're space riders. They go out
yeah.
and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and that's their adventures. And they have books, and they're famous
Right.
and so forth. But and they're looking at things and blah blah blah. That's the bigger novel.
Mm-hmm.
But they run into who they think are maybe aliens. They're unknown people, because these boys kind of traverse this terrain.
Yeah.
But it's a Girl Scout group on their own thing, who have their own way of doing things, and those girls remind me of exactly the people that Molly comes into contact with.
Uh-huh. Great.
Yeah, it was a great connection, because I was reading it, or had read it recently,
Wow.
when you, yeah.
Yeah, I always wondered why I had these aliens coming in the form of a girl group.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that we love aliens. We love angels and we love aliens.
Yeah.
And if you can bring them in, especially as more omniscient, characters, Molly could be on that spaceship with those girls.
Could be, or not. I mean, the whirly girls could just be another wildcat, like the Rat Patrol going around in this desert of Africa looking for trouble, one on one.
I'm just saying that if we
uh,
make this saga, it doesn't have to be earthbound or
No.
duo.
Sure. And Molly could be, perhaps she gets infected by something they cast off, and
Because Molly is
becomes-
another person who reminds me of our town. She seems kind
Right.
of Emily Webb-ish.
Sure, although she's still too young to know what she's doing, but
Right.
it clearly indicates off the bat that she's kind of autoerotic. She's sort of self-centered. She likes to walk through.
Oh yeah.
The middle of town
No, I
with
love Molly.
with her
I
bathing
love
suit
Molly.
on.
I thought that was really great.
She's only 12 years old still. So
And let me say this: while we're just floating along on Moon Fight Day,
yeah,
I am inept, and
I'm listening.
I didn't mean to make you joke.
No, I'm
I know
listening.
you've been thinking that for a long time.